Today, 30 teams put out the call. Wanted, the class of 95's leading men. For the last 6 seasons, it's been the Barry and Emmett show in the running back spotlight. Now, Penn State's Kajana Carter wants in on the act. The road less traveled was smooth enough for sweetness and good enough for Rice. Alcorn State's Steve McNair hopes to follow their lead to greatness. The big man up front is a rare and coveted role. Florida's Kevin Carter has the look and, according to some, a perfect fit for the part. Calling all stars, it's the NFL Draft on ESPN.
The 1995 NFL Draft was held from April 22nd to 23rd at the Paramount Theater at Madison Square Garden in New York City, New York.
A beautiful day in New York City, and inside the Paramount Theater, the Madison Square Garden Junior, the action is heating up. Big news last night involving the fine defensive tackle Warren Sapp of the University of Miami. Where will he go? Big news atop the draft, where Kajana Carter, running back Penn State, is the #1 pick. The Panthers have made a trade of that pick. A crowd of close to 4,000, draft towels and all. The fur is flying in New York,
there were 32 picks
as
in
it
the
is
first round
elsewhere
of this
around
draft,
the league.
as the two expansion teams each received 2 extra
Chris
picks
Mortensen
between the
reports
first
from
and
Charlotte,
second
where
rounds.
Bill Foley and the man who built the Bills will start to build this new franchise. They already have veteran quarterback Frank Reich to start the season. What they put around him is the big question. Andrea Kramer is in Jacksonville, where head coach Tom Coughlin has spent 2 years preparing for the next few hours. Steve Berline, Desmond Howard, and Jeff
Panthers
Lockman are the
would later
nucleus.
trade
The
the
rest
number
will be
1 overall
decided
pick
today.
in the Cincinnati Bengals before this
Also in
draft
Florida,
started
Gary
for the 5th
Danielson will
overall
be with the
pick,
Buccaneers,
the second
who
round
scored in
pick,
last year's
36th
draft with Trent
overall.
Dilfer and Eric
So the
Rex.
Bengals were
This winter
first
they
in this
signed
draft year,
Alvin
while
Harper
the
away from the
expansion
Cowboys.
Panthers
War Room
had the
Cam will
5th
focus
pick
on
in
Sam
this
White
draft.
as the Bucs look for some defensive help to go along with Hardy Nickerson. Hank Goldberg is with the Jets, where new head coach Rich Kotite is hearing the cries to replace Boomer at quarterback. But with the loss of Lageman, defense may be the call. Moving up north, Brad Nessler is with the Vikings and equipped with War Room Cam, where Dennis Green has 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. Warren Moon is the soul of the offense, but he's 38. Draft for the present or draft for the future? That's the question. Mark Malone reports from Philadelphia, where Randall remains, but there's change all around him. Ricky Waters in, Herschel Walker out. Plenty of choices lie ahead for new coach Ray Rhodes. Chris Fowler shuffles off to Buffalo, where the nucleus of a championship team is still intact. But the questions surround Jim Kelly, now 35 and recovering from knee surgery. Chris Myers reports from Dallas, where they still feel the sting of January's championship loss to the 49ers. We'll be there with War Room decisions of Jerry and Barry as they look for some protection up front for their offensive machine. Leslie Visser is in San Francisco, where the memory of embracing the trophy is still sweet. It'll be hard to hold on to. Already they've lost Waters. Dion's a question, but this is a club that always finds the player they need. And the coach, Mike Gottfried, is stationed in the film room, where he'll break down the top players in the NFL Draft. Back in New York about 25 minutes ago, it was announced, as the crowd is already getting fired up, that the Carolina Panthers have decided to trade their #1 draft pick and move down to the #5 slot for Cincinnati's #1 pick. The Bengals would move up, expressively probably to take Kajana Carter. In exchange, Carolina also gets Cincinnati's high pick in the 2nd round, the 36th overall. So Carolina would have 4 picks in the top 36, but not the #1 pick. Let's go down to Carolina Panther headquarters and Chris Mortensen and get the reaction on why the Panthers made the deal.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bill Foley and Chris said that he needed players, not just one players, and a running back like Kajana Carter didn't make sense to him with an expansion team. Now he's going to be able to take the quarterback he really likes that he compares to Jim Kelly, Kerry Collins with the #5 pick overall. Then they get 3 picks and 5 slots from the end of the 1st round to the start of the 2nd round. They get their players, they build their offensive line, and I think he feels good about the process that this expansion team's about to undertake, Chris.
All right, Morton, we'll be back to you shortly, and often, obviously. That is one story that has brewed just the last half hour. The story that brewed around the league yesterday and certainly last night in the early hours this morning is Mort's report yesterday that a National Football League security check of Warren Sapp, the fine defensive tackle from the University of Miami, revealed 7 positive drug tests, one of which were for cocaine. I spoke late last night with his college coach, now head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, Dennis Erickson. He intimated to me that that was way off base, that there are only 2 drug tests in question, both for marijuana. Each one is freshman year, one is senior year, so 3 years apart. As for the rest of the allegations and the stories that have been dug up thus far by the National Football League, Erickson spoke with us on ESPN just a half hour ago.
The 7 positives, the cocaine, that's absolutely a lie and not true at all. And that did not, Warren Sapp did not, or was not, I should say, involved in those accusations.
Dennis Erickson loves Warren Sapp as a player, as a person, and one thing we've learned already about Warren Sapp, he's a stand-up guy. He is with our Craig Erickson along with his agent, Drew Rosenhaus. Craig?
Absolutely, he is a stand-up guy. Warren Sapp, Drew Rosenhaus, his agent. A lot of allegations taking place right now. Drew, we'll start with you. Dennis Erickson, you just heard there, he said that the 7 tests were absolutely a lie. Now, last night you said the same. Do you still stand beside that?
Oh, absolutely. There's no truth to that whatsoever. I can't even tell you where this stuff is coming from. Somebody must be making it up. Warren Sapp has never had any multiple tests of that nature. That's a complete untruth. They've talked about cocaine. That's also very much untrue. And you're looking at a guy right now that has had very few problems in the past.
Did you talk last night with Dennis Erickson?
Yes, I did. You know, and I was trying to figure out where these things were coming from. Coach Erickson was obviously there, and he was shocked to hear these reports because these guys have been together, and there was never any problems. It's just false, and we're still trying to piece together where this is all coming from.
All right, Warren, and that comes down to you. I mean, have you ever done drugs at the University of Miami?
I've never had a problem at the University of Miami with any kind of substance.
Does all of this blow your mind that this is coming out?
I mean, I'm sitting up here ready for the draft, and all of a sudden we get a call, and then everything is flying at me. So, I mean, it's just blowing up right underneath me. So, I mean, it's just real tough right now.
How about the reaction to Dennis Erickson and his support for you?
I mean, I knew Coach would stand behind me because, I mean, like he's always said, when we ran together, I mean, that's my guy. I mean, he knows what happened.
How about teams? What are they telling you right now?
Well, I've been very impressed. I'm pleased with what the teams have had to say. I don't think that there's a tremendous amount of concern. I think the teams that were interested in drafting Warren before the reports that surfaced last night are still going to take him. I still see him going in the top 10. Some of the teams with real thin skin, they might be scared away by this bogus media stuff. But, hey, that's fine because, you know, he wouldn't want to play for those guys anyhow.
All right, Warren, what about the 2 positive tests?
I mean, like we said, I mean, it's total fabrication. I mean, I don't even know where it's coming from. So, I mean, wherever somebody's getting it from, I mean, I just actually, you know, show some proof then, if that's what you say.
All right, hang in there today. We'll be back with you.
All right.
All right, Chris.
All right, Craig and Warren and Drew, thank you very much. Certainly the name Warren Sapp, one we'll be talking about plenty. But for now, the name of the commissioner, Paul Tagliabue, to open the 60th draft. Let's go to the podium.
Welcome to the 60th Annual National Football League College Draft. We have had a trade of the first selection in the draft. The Carolina Panthers have traded the first pick in the draft to the Cincinnati Bengals. In return for the Bengals' first-round selection, the number 5 choice overall, and the Bengals' second-round selection, number 36 overall. So the Cincinnati Bengals are now on the clock.
Well, we've been on for about 8 minutes, and I think we have a circuit overload. Joe Theismann, Mel Kiper, who will be with us for, well, today's coverage, tomorrow's coverage, as gavel to gavel, 249 picks will be covered here on ESPN. Let's go to Ki-Jana Carter right away. The pick is coming up. He, no doubt, is a Marshall Faulk type, maybe a tad slower if that's possible, but he's right in his class, right?
He's a great football player, Chris. When you look at Ki-Jana Carter and the Cincinnati Bengals, the Bengals matched the offer that Buddy Ryan gave to Carl Pickens. They have Darnay Scott on the other side. Now you're throwing Ki-Jana Carter to a running game that was non-existent last year. And also factor in Eric Bieniemy and James Joseph, who they added through free agency. Ki-Jana Carter needs an offensive line, so the Bengals will have to address that down the road. But Ki-Jana Carter, great football player, tremendous game breaker in that Marshall Faulk mold. And we saw the difference Marshall Faulk made last year to the Indianapolis Colts.
Well, Cincinnati didn't obtain the pick to take 50 minutes to figure out who they were going to select. Let's go to the podium.
With the first pick in the draft, the Cincinnati Bengals have selected running back from Penn State, Ki-Jana Carter. The Jacksonville Jaguars are now on the clock.
Kajana Carter, there he is, and you think of all the work all of these young men have put in just getting to this level, and what a happy day, and the suspense. And I can't say with Kajana Carter, there was a lot of suspense at what number he was going to go. It was just, as he found out late last night and early this morning, Joe, where he was going to go. But obviously the Bengals want to do what Marshall Faulk has done for the Colts, which is immediately elevate them to a respectable 500 football team, which sights a lot higher.
It really has, Chris. I think when you take a running back of the caliber of Kajana Carter, all of a sudden you wind up in a situation where you've got a young man who you know is going to be there, going to be able to carry the football for you, and you build through the running game. It takes a tremendous amount of pressure off of Jeff Blake and the quarterbacks and the wide receivers. It helps out an offensive line that doesn't have to be very good. They can be okay because this is the kind of a football player who can make the offensive line look good. It also keeps the defense off the field a lot more. So this one individual impacts the entire football team at every position.
Mel, he is the height 5'10", maybe just a tad bigger than Emmitt Smith, taller than Thurman Thomas, but at 224, he is a lot bigger build, isn't he?
Strong kid, Chris, and you see the extra gear he has. When this kid breaks the tackle and gets into the open field, nobody, no 4-4 corner is going to catch him. He ran 4.35 during individual workout. You see the creative ability he has. Now the balance and the tackle breaking. Now catching the football, low pass, catches it, turns it upfield, then there's more power that he displays. But it's that ability to sense daylight and then turn it on in the open field and go all the way. And that's the game-breaking ability that Faulk provided, Emmitt Smith provides, Barry Sanders provides, and that's what Kajana Carter is going to do for the Bengals, provided they build that offensive lineup.
Here's a number that blows everyone's mind. I don't care what competition you're running against. 7.8 yards a carry. He averaged last year for Penn State. 23 touchdowns in the regular season, 3 more in the Rose Bowl as Penn State defeated Oregon. So 26 touchdowns and 1,539 yards plus 156 in the postseason. I mean, you're talking close to a 2,000-yard back. He is the first running back to be selected with the #1 overall pick since Tampa selected and did not sign Bo Jackson at 86. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Bengals are going to sign him. He'll be the first guy drafted and signed by his team, first running back since 1981. George Rogers, the New Orleans Saints, the year before that with Billy Sims, Detroit, 2 years before that, Earl Campbell. But we haven't seen this for a while. Remember, Marshall Faulk was the #2 pick last year, and certainly Kajana looks good in those Bengal colors. By the way, let's say something about the Cincinnati Bengals right now. Mike Brown, hey, what a gutsy move. He told everyone last night, you want to come up to the #5 spot, better make your deal by Friday night. He's an honest man because he knew that if no one wanted to come up and give him what he wanted, we're going to go all the way up. Here he makes a gutsy move for Kajana Carter. He has said a year from now, if his stadium situation isn't solved, he would entertain moving the team out. My goodness, the Bengals
Buccaneers
are
in this
standing
draft
mighty
mark
tall. Where's
only the
this come
second
from?
time to
Well, I
date
think it comes
that
from
2 Hall
a
of Fame
foundation
players
that
were
they want to go in
selected
a
by the
direction.
same
I mean,
team
Mike
in the
Brown
same
has said,
round
okay,
of the
we're going to
draft.
start and build this football team this way.
The other
A
team
running
being
back
the
is a
Bears
very
in the
safe choice. What
1965
surprises
NFL
me
draft.
is that Carolina, I think, made the move cheap. A 1 and a 2, that's all for him. That's the biggest surprise to me. You'd think of Kajana Carter or the first pick in the draft is going to cost somebody a lot more than just a 1 and a 2. But the ulterior motive of Carolina is they didn't want to take they wanted Kerry Collins. They felt like maybe if they moved down a little bit, we know Kerry Collins is going to be there at 5. So Polian may have sold the deal a little bit short, but at least he gets the player that he wants. And, of course, if you're an expansion team, you can't be hurt with picks. As many picks as you can get, that's fine.
Well, the Carolina Panthers now will wait for 4 more picks. They will be the 5th overall. Bill Polian, and speaking with him this morning, Chris Mortensen, knew very well the history of trading out of the #1 spot, that usually the teams that get the #1 player do better than the other teams that get a lot of draft picks. But as he said, Mort, that's only statistics, and he needs players. He's in a different role than most of these teams that have traded out of the #1 slot because he's just building a team from scratch. Mort?
That's exactly right, Chris. I mean, that was the one thing that impressed me yesterday is that he needed more than one player, and a running back with an expansion team, no offensive line, just didn't make sense to him. By the time he expects to be playoff competitive in about 4 years, who knows if Kajana Carter would be around. Of course, with Kerry Collins, he can be a little bit more patient. They've signed Frank Reich. They've acquired Frank Reich to be their main quarterback and really to be a tutor to Kerry Collins if they get him at the #5 pick as expected, Chris.
Well, Mort certainly building a franchise, and we'll talk about more as the Carolina Panthers have a lot of fellas in that front office that have done this before. Building your football team, whether you are new or whether you are experienced. Mel, you want to get a blue-chip player? Let's walk through the top 10 or 12 players that you've got on the board.
Strong group of athletes, Chris. You look at the top, Carter, Tony Boselli, who figures that Jacksonville can be a Pro Bowl left tackle. Kevin Carter, an outstanding pass-rushing defensive end. You got Michael Westbrook, who figures to be that big receiver that Norv Turner wants with the Washington Redskins. And then Warren Sapp, who could fall all the way down to the Cleveland Browns at 10 because of some of those allegations, plus the fact that he doesn't really fit the physical parameters. And by that, I mean he's not 6'4", 300 pounds. Wheatley could drop a little bit with durability questions, but he's got great talent. McNair may go to Houston with the 3rd pick. Carey, the 5 pick to Carolina. Both those quarterbacks have great potential. With McNair, I think the one quarterback 4 years down the road who could be spectacular. Stokes, the speed question could push him maybe to 8 to 15 area. And Joey Galloway, no question with speed with him, Chris. 4.18 speed. Seattle with Dennis Erickson needing somebody to complement Brian Blades. Would love to have Joey Galloway.
Well, those are the players and the names that you'll hear awfully early. The Jacksonville Jaguars figured they paid all this money to get into the league. Why not take 15 minutes while you're on the clock? You get 15 minutes for each of the first-round selections. There's about 8.5 to go with the 2nd overall pick. The word for weeks has been Tony Boselli, the outstanding tackle of Southern California, continuing a fine tradition of left tackles in the name of Munoz, etc., from that school. Or is there some late thoughts of going somewhere else in Jacksonville? Let's head down to Florida and check in with Andrea Kramer. Good afternoon, Andrea.
Good afternoon, Chris. Well, they've been taking calls all morning about the 2nd pick. I guess there's no harm in listening, right? For example, we've heard that Minnesota has called to try to get up into the 2nd spot to take Steve McNair, especially since, as you mentioned, Houston's interested in McNair at the 3rd spot. But Tom Coughlin has a desperate need for tackles. Some people have said it's a mortal lock. He'll take Boselli. This Tony Boselli is a guy that he is very, very high on. Can't say enough about how fluid he is, especially for a big man, 6'7". He even said that he could add some weight still, about 10 more pounds. Tony Boselli is also a guy who wants to come here to Jacksonville. I spoke to him earlier this week, and he would be very happy to be the 2nd pick in this draft and to prove that he is closer to Anthony Munoz than he is closer to Tony Mandarich, the last offensive lineman taken this high, number 2 in '89. Chris, back to you.
All right, Andrea, at about 7.5 minutes left on the clock. Will that be the young man that goes to Jacksonville? Although, if he doesn't go there, he's not going to fall very far. That's for darn sure. Put him a left tackle, let him stay there for 10 years. We'll be back in New York. Keep it where it is. The Paramount Theater in New York, where one pick has been made. It's Kajana Carter. He is a Cincinnati Bengal because of their trade with the number 1 pick with the Carolina Panthers. He's with our Craig James right now. And I imagine, Craig, got to be all smiles.
Guy has to be all smiles. Kijana stands for young man, right?
That's right. Yes, it is. And right now, I'm very happy. Hour and a half from my hometown. You know, it can be. Words can't explain how I feel right now because all my family comes see me now every week.
What were your emotions like knowing over the last 24 hours you were being traded around and discussed so much?
It was kind of funny, you know. My lawyer, Lee Steinberg, said that I'm going to go first, but he don't know with who. He was saying how Carolina was interested in Carey, and they was interested in trading down to a team, you know, who wanted to select me. And so I was really relaxed, to tell you the truth, last night because I was let God take care of it, and you know, I was going to be happy anywhere I went.
Were you concerned about Carolina and their makeshift offensive line?
No, I had confidence in my skills. That's how I really looked at it. You know, like I said, any team who comes together with 40 people that want to win each week, I think they'll be all right, and that's how I came into it.
Your skills, is there any area that you'll work on particularly going into the NFL?
I work on all my skills. You know, NFL is the elite group, and I'm going to try to be one of the elite, try to be one of the best. And right now, I'm going to work on all my skills. I'm not satisfied, you know, 1st pick, but that's all right now. It's time to go to work.
1st pick, number 1 guy, you feel the pressure?
No, not at all. I'm just going to have fun. It's a thing I can carry with the rest of my life. You know, nobody could ever say they was the 1st pick in the '95 draft.
Well, you can always dance your way around. You took ballet, right?
Yeah, I don't think I can do that. I think they make fun of me a little bit. One thing I want to say, once again, I did it up close. I want to send out my regards to the people in Oklahoma City again. I honestly feel bad about that, and I hope that a lot of people are feeling good. I feel a little bit better about, you know, at least we got the 2 guys that supposedly did it.
All right. Hey, congratulations. Have a great career.
Thank you. Hi, Anna.
All right. Hey, Boomer, he can dance his way through the NFL defensive lines.
Hey, there's no doubt about that. And we learned something else about Kajana Carter, Craig, that in the greatest moment of his life, at least a professional or athletic life, that he's thinking about those and the tragedy involved in Oklahoma. So we know what kind of ball player comes out of Penn State with Joe Paterno. One other note on Kajana Carter. Remember, they're in the AFC Central with Cincinnati. Cleveland a running team, Pittsburgh a running team, Houston 2-14, Jacksonville in there. So Cincinnati can get a few more wins right away with Carter and play maybe the same style of ball a little bit as the big guys who made the playoffs, Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Jacksonville's pick. Here's the commissioner.
The Jacksonville Jaguars have selected tackle, Southern California, Tony Boselli. The Houston Oilers are now on the clock.
So Tony Boselli, the tackle from Southern California, goes with the second pick to Jacksonville. USC offensive lineman, top 5 in the draft. 15 years ago, a young man by the name of Anthony Munoz went with the third pick to Cincinnati. He's going to be going to the Hall of Fame. Ron Yeri was the first pick at 68 with the Vikings. Is he the similar quality player, Mel?
They hope he is, Chris. You watch him here, number 71, the left tackle, critical left tackle. You see the quickness. Here's a kid, 325 pounds. He can get down the field and deliver a block on the move. You'll see him in pass protection and drive blocking. He gets explosion at the point. Here you go with Sean Walters. Then you watch him here again at left tackle, pass protection. There's Ronaldo Winnie's going up against a quick pass rusher. Doesn't even get into the backfield to do any damage whatsoever. Pulling around the corner. Outstanding quickness for a kid 325 pounds, Chris. There's no way to soft sell Tony Boselli. He's a great football player, great character individual as well. Kid who had a 3.02 grade point average. He's a business administration major. In the summer of '94, he worked on the construction crew that repaired the Los Angeles Coliseum after the earthquake damage. So a kid who really has his head on straight, and certainly with the Jacksonville Jaguars will be looked to be that left tackle that they can put out there for maybe 12 to 14 years, and maybe half of that time, Chris, he'll be in the Pro Bowl.
6'6", 315. He probably repaired the Coliseum all by himself. Here are the guys we were talking about. Ron Yeri, as good as it gets, was a number 1 pick back in 1968 with the Vikes, 7 Pro Bowls. Anthony Munoz, number 1 pick of the Bengals. He was the third overall pick in 1980. 11 Pro Bowls out of 13 years. Marvin Powell made 5 Pro Bowls. So this is the pedigree from whence Tony Boselli comes. And one other note as we go to Andrea Kramer. The first draft pick ever made by the Cincinnati Bengals with a guy that knows how to build a football team, Paul Brown, was a center. Bob Johnson. He put him at center. He played there for 10 years. As we go down to Jacksonville, I've got a feeling that Tom Coughlin, first pick, Tony Boselli, Andrea, he's going to put him there for 10 to 12 years at left tackle and block the sun.
Absolutely, Chris. And boy, he was just watching the shot of Tony holding up the jersey, and he was a very happy man, needless to say. Congratulations, but what took so long? What were you doing in there?
Lots of phone calls, lots of things going on in there, Andrea.
Any doubt, though, about Boselli?
Absolutely none. No, he really looked good in that teal and black, didn't he?
He did. Now, tell me what it was exactly about him. You've worked him out, you've had dinner with him, you've spent a lot of time researching him. What is it about Boselli that you like so much?
Well, I like his size and his speed and his great ability to move his feet. He has the instinct of dominance. He has great character. He's a focused young man, mature, a great foundation building block for this franchise.
Did you get a little nervous when Cincinnati moved up to the first pick, especially since they had quite a need for a left tackle also?
Cincinnati coveted Boselli. They certainly have had great success in the past with the offensive lineman taken high in the draft, in the same school as well. So, yes, there were some nervous moments.
Now, you've got a number of picks, 12 picks overall today because you gave up 2 in the Mark Brunell trade yesterday. Do you expect to move up at all in the first round, package some picks and move up?
We'll see, Andrea. We have some players in mind. We'll judge as the draft goes on, the first round goes on, for example, exactly what we need to do, and if it's worthy and worth moving up and giving up some picks, we'll do it.
And we will talk to you later as the day progresses. Thank you very much, Coach Coughlin. Let's head back to New York.
All right, Tom and Andrea, thank you very much. Steve Berline and Mark Brunell are the quarterbacks for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They just got smiles with that draft pick of Tony Boselli. We'll be back. Speaking of quarterbacks, is this the slot for Steve McNair? Does he go with the third pick to Houston? He's in New York. So are we. We'll be back. And welcome back to the new venue of the 60th annual NFL selection meeting. We commonly call it the NFL draft. We're here at the Paramount Theater in New York. And now is the time, Mr. Theismann, that we start to look at quarterbacks, and there's a very good reason why. A, there are a couple guys that, especially Steve McNair, with numbers you can't believe. Right. But B, I think you're younger than the average age of quarterbacks in the NFL.
I could well be very young in the comparison when we take a look at the guys around the league. The National Football League has got to be in a fearful situation. There are 90 NFL jobs that are available. 32 of those jobs are occupied by players who are 30 years or older. 8 are over 35. But look at the bottom number. Of the 28 teams that started last year, 16 starters, or the 30 now, 16 starters are over 30 years old. I think that the National Football League is entering right now in this round, this first round, and in this draft, a fearful draft. And what it is teams are a little bit afraid to take these guys because there really isn't a quarterback out there that you can call a franchise quarterback like you did Dilford or Schuler or Bledsoe or Meyer in the last couple. But what you've got is you've got a tremendous need for some quality quarterbacks. That's what you're going to see in this draft. Two guys in particular, Steve McNair, Kerry Collins, will probably go in the next 3 or 4 picks. When I graded them out, I took a hard look at their abilities. Arm strength, McNair is unmatched here. Mechanics, McNair just looks really fluid in what he does. Kerry Collins has that little twitch in his throw. Pocket presence, Collins hangs in the pocket. That's where he makes his living. Athletic ability, there aren't athletes in this draft at any position that can compare to McNair. And system preparation, I think it goes to Kerry Collins out of Penn State. Now, when I broke them down as far as their ability to throw the football, McNair struggles throwing the ball down the field from an accuracy standpoint. Collins does an excellent job of hanging in the pocket, putting air under the ball, completing passes into the receivers while they're running down the field. Touch-wise, McNair, again, he's a strong-arm guy, really waits till receivers break before he throws the ball, doesn't anticipate it well. Collins does. Rollout, as I said before, there isn't any comparison to Steve McNair. He's the best when he's on the run. Kerry Collins, better stay at home. And then when you look at the reloads, McNair has the quick arm. Collins has an arm that's a little slower. But I rate both of them to a total points of 34, Boom. So I think they both have strengths. They just fall in different areas.
And it may decide when once they get slotted on teams, we'll see who fits where in your eyes a little bit better. The Houston Oilers have a big decision to make. Do they go with Steve McNair? Do they look at the wide receiver Michael Westbrook from Colorado? Do they go Kevin Carter on the defensive line? Let's go down to Dallas for Chris Myers. It's not far from Houston. He had his ear out the window, and I think he heard the war room conversation all the way up in Big D. Chris?
We're listening closely. Well, the Oilers have lost 40 sacks in terms of personnel over the last couple of years, so the debate came down to Kevin Carter or Steve McNair. And as one of the other Oiler coaches told me, he said McNair is a talented player, but by the time he gets it done, we will have gone through 2 head coaches here, referring to Houston. General Manager Floyd Reese, who's been the McNair backer all the way through, he turned it around, said this guy, you cannot pass up a franchise quarterback. How many teams has Reggie White taken to the Super Bowl? He says McNair can do for Houston what Warren Moon has done, and they relate his athletic ability to that of Steve Young, and they're willing to wait slowly and bring him along rather carefully. Let's now go over to Chris Mortensen at Panther headquarters.
Well, Chris, a couple of things about that Oilers pick. Mike Holovec, the former general manager of the Oilers, still evaluates talent for Houston. He's one of the best talent evaluators in the NFL. He gave McNair one of the highest grades ever for a quarterback. That was an influence. And Floyd Reese has made this point. Hey, they went to the playoffs for 7 years. He's not looking to get back to the playoffs. He wants to win a Super Bowl within 4 or 5 years, and he knows that Steve McNair is going to take some time. But in that 4th year, if McNair is ready, and if he's the Michael Jordan of this draft, then he thinks he's going to look pretty good with this one. Now, for some developments down in Tampa Bay, let's go to Gary Danielson.
There is some breaking news here in Tampa Bay. Craig Erickson, the starter a year ago, looks like a deal has been made with Indianapolis. It's contingent on Craig Erickson signing a deal with Indianapolis, and I really think this is a fit for Craig Erickson. Played for Lindy Infante, the new offensive coordinator there. It's a controlled passing game. Craig, a very hard worker. I asked Sam Weish why the deal was made, and he says he's been working with Trent Dilfer since March every morning, February, March, every morning, 2 to 3 hours. He thinks he's ready to play. So it looks like Craig Erickson could be off to Indianapolis. Chris?
Well, and as Gary just said, they have to sign him. Ralph Cindrich represents Craig Erickson. It's going to be a deal that it can get done, but if Indianapolis tries to squeeze Erickson, there could be some trouble there. What's interesting is, as of yesterday, it looked like Indianapolis was willing to give up next year's #1 pick to get Craig Erickson, which is a great deal for Tampa Bay because after this year, Erickson would be an unrestricted free agent. All right, Chris.
All right, guys, thank you. The Indianapolis Colts had tipped their hand a few days ago saying that they had wanted Craig Erickson, so you didn't know if that's a deal buster, make it a little bit tougher for Tampa Bay to a little bigger price that they would get. But it looks like this will happen, and the Colts now would have a replacement for Jim Harbaugh at quarterback. Hadn't happened yet, but these are the trades that have happened. And boy, have they happened. Cincinnati Bengals got the #1 overall draft pick in exchange for moving their pick, giving their 5th overall draft pick and their pick in the early 2nd round to Carolina. They picked Ki-Jana Carter. Rob Moore would have been a free agent at the end of this year, Pro Bowl receiver for the Jets, goes to the Arizona Cardinals, who need some offense and just got some. In exchange, the Jets get Ron Moore, so now they have every guy that ever ran the ball in the 90s for Arizona, with Johnny Johnson a couple of years ago, and Ron Moore now. A 1st-round pick of the Cardinals, which is 16th, and a 4th-round pick of the Cards, which is 106. Mark Brunell, you saw him play some in relief of Brett Favre when he got hurt. He's a pretty good-looking left-handed quarterback, and now Jacksonville has their young quarterback behind Berline. They get Mark Brunell, the Packers backup, for a 3 and a 5, and they signed him to a new deal, rumored to be about $1 million. That's a pretty good job by Brunell getting that sort of a dollar sign from Jacksonville. But now we get Jacksonville that's not looking quarterback at all here in this draft. But should Houston be looking quarterback here?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question in my mind that Houston's got to take Steve McNair. He is raw around the edges. I'll grant that. Maybe comes out of the competition in Division II schools where it isn't like it would be in the Division I. But he's just too darn talented to pass up. He's the kind of guy you have to have. And the reason why is Jerry Rome has just taken over as the offensive coordinator down in Houston. Jerry Rome's basis comes out of the Washington system. He was in Seattle for a while. I had a chance to be coached by Jerry Rome when I was in Washington, D.C. He knows the quarterback position. It's a perfect marriage for Steve McNair to go with Jerry Rome. He knows what he's doing. He can make the kid into something special. That's why I think it's very important. I think it would work out very well for Steve McNair to wind up in Houston.
And then we take a look at the Houston quarterback situation. They got Chris Chandler, the former everybody, but former Cardinal last year, who was Rome's guy.
That's right.
So he probably will start right now with Cody Carlson being the backup and Bucky Richardson third. Here's my question. When is Steve McNair really ready to step in to be a starting quarterback?
Could it be QB?
Could it be in the 96
later
season?
on
Could it be
in the
late?
Super Bowl?
This 95 season? What do you think?
I think what happens, he doesn't play at all in the 95 season. Doesn't play at all. He learns the system. He gets more comfortable with the National Football League. It's an orientation year. Year 2, he winds up spotting a little bit. And remember, Chris Chandler hasn't been the most healthy of quarterbacks, nor has Cody Carlson. So I would anticipate him not really planning to play in 96, but he might have to because of injury. I would say if you're looking at a timetable for Steve McNair, I would expect him to be the Houston Oilers quarterback in 1997. Now, what gets scary is after the 98 season, he's a free agent. So if you're going to pay $20 million now, it's probably going to cost you $40 million coming back up, Chris. So, I mean, you're investing some money in a young man, but he certainly is the kind of guy you're willing to spend some time on because he is and could well be your franchise quarterback.
A unique athlete for sure at that position. Chris Mortensen, has Houston got a big, well, we'll go to Mort in a moment. I know he has lots of thoughts. You were looking marvelous there, Mort, but we'll go back down to Panther headquarters in just a moment. The pick has gone up to the podium. Well, the commissioner his cab got caught in traffic, I think, which, by the way, has been known to happen here in New York. There's Steve McNair.
Let's see who the Alcorn State University QB is, who was drafted by the Houston Oilers here, later playing for the rebooted Tennessee Titans, and who would win the Walter Payton Award in 1994.
With the 3rd choice in the 1st round, the Houston Oilers select quarterback from Alcorn State, Steve McNair.
All right.
The Washington Redskins are now on the clock.
All right, they had the guts to pull the trigger. Steve McNair, 14,496 yards passing in 4 years. 2,300 yards running the football. Passing touchdowns and running touchdowns combined, 152 touchdowns. I don't care who he's playing against, Joe. That's unbelievable.
You bring up the most important point, Chris. He's so talented, it doesn't matter from a competition standpoint. Watch him go back in the pocket. Good quick release over the middle. People say, well, he can't work from under the center. You saw him do that. Now in the shotgun. Nice pocket presence, steps up, good release. The athletic ability he has is unbelievable. Why not scramble right and throw back across the field? Reminds you of John Elway? Oh, just a little bit. Now he hangs in the pocket, slides up, great athletic ability. He pulls a hamstring on this play, but he stays in. And that's another thing about him. He's tough. He played the next week. Now he just waits in the pocket, gives the old I'm going right, no, I'm going left. Now I throw like Warren Moon for a touchdown. back in the pocket again. This is the only thing that's a little scary, is the fact that he can just throw wherever he wants. He throws it a little bit late down the field. Watch the receiver have to wait for the ball. He's going to have to work on his anticipation a little bit, but in my mind, that is the only thing that I think Steve McNair needs to really concentrate on. He may be raw around the edges, but diamonds are as well before they become very valuable stones.
Well, while we do some mining here in New York, and Steve McNair does some mining right there with the Houston Oilers. And again, we applaud the Oilers for having the conviction to pull the trigger here on a guy who can certainly pull the trigger. Now let's go back to Chris Mortensen, and I guess Floyd Reese was the one that won out at Houston, Mort.
That's right. You know, everybody thinks Steve McNair only played in the shotgun at Alcorn State, Chris, but that's not true. His first 2 years there, he played under the center, and very effectively. He had better receivers there, Torrance Small, Cedric Tillman. So he didn't go to the shotgun until he hurt his ankle, and then it worked so well out of the shotgun they just kept him there. Now, Jerry Rome has worked with young quarterbacks very effectively, as Joe mentioned. Troy Aikman in Dallas still gives a lot of praise to Jerry Rome for that first year. Rome, though, wanted Colorado wide receiver Michael Westbrook. He thought Westbrook was just going to be a big-timer. I tell you what, the Washington Redskins, next up on the board, they're going to take Michael Westbrook. Now, let's go to Chris Fowler in Buffalo.
More on this day that's dedicated to the evaluation of talent. It's interesting to note that Steve McNair out of high school was not offered a lot of scholarships by power programs to play quarterback. They wanted to have him, but as a defensive player, they were not willing to gamble and give him the chance to play quarterback. Interesting that the Houston Oilers are today. As for Kijana Carter, when he arrived at Penn State out of high school, he was only the third most highly regarded running back recruit the Lions had that year. Stephen Pitts and Mike Archie both considered better prospects at running back, so a lot of things can change in 3 years. Here they are, 2 out of the top 3 picks in the '95 draft. Boomer?
All right, Chris, thank you. The next team on the board is the Washington Redskins. We understand the pick is in. Steve McNair is the first quarterback to be chosen in the first round from the SWAC since Doug Williams in the late 70s with the Buccaneers. The only quarterback ever to bring Tampa Bay to the playoffs, and a guy who won a Super Bowl ring with the Washington Redskins. That's McNair's pedigree. Here's the Redskins pick with the commissioner.
With the fourth choice in the first round, the Washington Redskins select wide receiver from Colorado, Michael Westbrook. The Carolinas are now on the clock.
We'll get more on McNair in a moment, but the wide receiver Michael Westbrook from Colorado, who started for several years, has the big hands. And this, frankly, just makes sense. You got a young quarterback in Heath Schuler. Let him get a great receiver to grow up with in Michael Westbrook. Joe, this makes sense for Norv Turner.
Well, the one thing that Norv Turner wanted, Chris, is he wanted a guy who, when he got his hands on the football, could get down the field and put it in the end zone. Henry Ellard had a lot of catches last year for the Redskins. The problem is he couldn't really take it past where the catch was made. They feel like Michael Westbrook can. In this draft, he is the guy with the greatest upside, so much potential, so much athletic ability, and so much speed. There he is on a reverse against Oklahoma. Look at him running the open field. Sets up the block very well, goes up the field, picks up a lot of yards. Now he catches the ball over the middle. Great moves. You can't bring him down. He's got good quickness for a guy as big as he is. He also can get away from a bump and run center, and then you see the back of a chair. That's where Warren Sapp was sitting watching the Michael Westbrook film. And then Westbrook comes in, delivers the blow. And this is where you want to see him work, in the All-Star games. He's a tall guy, but he doesn't slip as the defensive back does on wet turf. Now, just flat-out speed. Gets down the field, ball's a little bit underthrown, he gets caught, but not too many people in the National Football League are going to catch him if he gets behind him. He is just a real talented young man.
And he had a 1,000-yard receiving year at Colorado in '92, as far back as that. Heath Schuler, wind up and fire to Michael Westbrook. We'll wind up and fire with the Panthers pick in a moment. Time since the common draft began in 1967. It happened in '71. Plunkett, Manning, Dan Pastorini to Houston in the third spot, just like McNair just went to Houston, and J.D. Hill. '83, Elway, Eric Dickerson, Kurt Warner, and Chris Hinton. And now it's happened in '95. Kijana Carter, Tony Boselli, Steve McNair, and Michael Westbrook. Steve McNair is with our Craig James. Craig?
And I would suspect a relieved guy. Steve McNair was the talk of college football last season. There were a lot of impressive numbers posted by this guy. Unbelievable numbers, matter of fact, that really propelled him to the number 3 selection in this year's draft. 44 touchdown passes. And, Steve, you look at all of those numbers. Do you say to yourself, wow, I did that, and I'm just thrilled to be here, or is your mind swimming right now?
Well, I'm glad this process is over with, and I can concentrate on just doing the things I got to do to prepare to be the quarterback in Houston. Yeah, I couldn't have did it without the teammates that back home at Alcorn State University, coaching staff also, those guys who makes me as the quarterback that I am today.
Are there any former players that have been in the National Football League that have kind of advised you and helped you along the way?
Well, Doug Williams, being in the SWAC, he's been in the league and being a Super Bowl MVP, he's really led me the way to really, to get the process that I'm going through now. He made it easy for me and telling me how to cope with the things that it's going to be as a black quarterback in the National Football League.
All right, well, hang on here. The commissioner has another selection for us, Chris.
All right, Craig, here comes the commissioner. And don't think there's a lot of suspense here with the Panthers.
Geez, I wonder who.
With the fifth choice in the first round, the Carolina Panthers select quarterback from Penn State, Kerry Collins. St. Louis is now on the clock.
A pair of Penn State players going in the top 5. Let's go back over to Craig to wrap up with one of the 2 quarterbacks of the hour, Steve McNair. Craig?
Well, Chris, the thing about Steve, he's such in demand. He has taken off on us over here. He's already gone somewhere else. But the thing that he's going to have to do is really go in, listen, learn, establish himself as a person in the locker room. I think that's going to be the number one thing he needs to deal with, and Joe would attest to that, is the players have to believe in him. They have to say Steve McNair is a solid human being, and then from there he can learn the offense.
All right, Craig, thank you. There is Kerry Collins, undefeated Penn State. Now he'll go to the Carolina Panthers. They were predominantly blue. I mean, he's used to wearing the blue.
A little darker blue.
Their uniform's a little more jazzy than Joe's out of Penn State, I would say. Second time, every year in the 90s, Joe, we've had 2 quarterbacks go in the first round. So this is the 6th straight year that 2, and we could have more, 2 quarterbacks have gone in the first round. Does Kerry Collins need the right situation, or, I mean, he'll sit behind Frank Reich and take a lot of it in this year, won't he?
I think he's absolutely in the right situation. Just like I felt like Steve McNair is in the right situation in Houston, I think Kerry Collins is in the right situation. Does a nice job of setting up. He's got that little flick in his wrist, but as he told me, he said, I played with it all year. Nobody ever really said anything until I got into the All-Star games. There's a difference between the way the 2 of them release the ball. They both get it out, but look at the difference in grip. You see McNair's, how his finger is spread down. The only thing about Kerry is I'd like to see him open his hands up a little more, and these are the type of techniques that the coaches are going to work on. Here he is sitting tough in the pocket, makes the throw. I mean, his leadership skills are unbelievable. You say he can't move, he moves well enough to throw the touchdown, and he really throws a good deep ball. See how he leads the receiver and lets him run under it. One of the things I really like about him, probably more than anything, is his ability to throw the ball down the field. That is essentially what I think pro quarterbacks have to do and what coaches are looking for.
Let's get Mel Kiper in here. Now, a lot of teams may not have gone up to a number 5 spot and picked a Kerry Collins. Bill Polian, the name we kept hearing and talking with Bill as we do, Jim Kelly. That told us all we needed to know. He just loves Collins' skills, his leadership ability. Do you think this is too high, or will he be an outstanding pro player?
Well, Chris, I did a show back in October with Bill Polian, and he said point blank, you do not take a running back as an expansion team with the first pick in the draft. And he wanted a quarterback as the focal point. Kerry Collins is that type of player. We saw at the Senior Bowl the subtle difference between a Collins and a Steve McNair. Collins was a take-charge kid in the huddle, had a real presence out there. Steve's going to have to settle in slowly. Once he's familiar with the surroundings, maybe that take-charge ability will come out. But right now, Kerry is much more prepared to play at this stage of his career.
All right, so a pair of quarterbacks have gone 3 and 5. The St. Louis Rams, that's right, the St. Louis Rams are now on the clock, and they got some decisions to make, although Kevin Carter is sitting there. Could they go wide receiver in Joey Galloway? Those are choices, Chris Myers, as we join you in Dallas, that St. Louis is probably mulling over a little bit north of you right now.
They are, Chris. Carter a consideration. By the way, the St. Louis Rams still operating out of Anaheim. Steve Ortmeyer, Vice President of Operations, calling the decisions here, and he relates this draft to one of 1988 when some outstanding receivers like Michael Irvin and Sterling Sharp and Anthony Miller, someone that he drafted with San Diego, he relates that draft to this draft with Westbrook, J.J. Stokes, and Joey Galloway at the top of the Rams list because he can also help them with his return ability. And given the special teams background of Steve Ortmeyer, a former special teamer who also spent some time with the Raiders and Alexander Wright, it looks like Joey Galloway is at the top of their list if they don't go defense with Kevin Carter, the defensive lineman. The Rams have had at least 2 teams contact them about trading up into their spot. The Minnesota Vikings, one of those teams, also the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles would be interested in trading up to get the linebacker Mike Mamula. The owner of the Eagles, Jeffrey Lurie, so excited about his ability that he actually went to the workout at Boston College to watch Mamula. So the Eagles could be talking about trading up with the Rams, but Joey Galloway appears to be at the top of their list. Moments ago at the Dallas War Room, Jerry Jones, with one of his scouts, had a little gentlemanly wager about who the Washington Redskins were going to take, and that's when the first wide receiver was chosen, Michael Westbrook. Looks like Jerry didn't have that one called correctly. His scout beat him to the punch, and that leaves a couple of receiver choices, Stokes or Galloway, for Steve Ortmeyer and the St. Louis Rams. Let's go back now to Chris Berman in New York.
Oh, those backroom poker games in those war rooms. See, good thing we don't have the cameras in all of them on all the time. One little connection with the Rams for a moment. Deke Pollard, a coach on Dan Henning's staff with Mike Mamula, the player from BC, is now on Rich Brooks' staff with the Rams. He's interested in his player Mamula, so throw that into all of it. Penn State players, we've had a tandem in the top 5. Remember back in '83 when Kurt Warner went to the Seahawks, Todd Blackledge went to the Chiefs? It kind of looks like that, doesn't it? We'll be back.
It's as far as Michelin science has ever gone. Our biggest breakthrough since we invented the radial. Technology that brings us to a new level of performance, in good weather and bad. In the rain, in the snow. Technology so advanced, it even saves gas. The new energy tires with Radial XSE technology from Michelin. It's science that goes beyond.
Craig James likes to hang around with quarterbacks. I'm getting that feeling already. Just with Steve McNair, now you're with Kerry Collins. You want the ball again, don't you, Pony?
Only if Tony Boselli's blocking in front of us. That's the only chance I have. About 5 of those guys there. The Maxwell Award winner, all the things that have happened to you, all of the numbers, the 66.7 completion percentage, 2,700 yards passing, the touchdowns, very few interceptions. This was a year, Joe Paterno said, you had as fine as any quarterback he's ever had at Penn State. What was the difference in this season?
I think it was the fact that I matured a lot from the previous season. I really kind of knew I always had the physical skills, but I think it was just a matter of having the mental preparation and the mental part of it come around, and I think once that happened, I was able to be really effective.
When you talk about your throwing skills, Joe Theismann just talking about the grip on the ball. I've heard you've been with Bill Walsh. What's going on out there?
Well, everybody made a big deal about the so-called hitch. It kind of took an identity of its own after the Senior Bowl, but you talked to a lot of NFL scouts in the past month or so, there wasn't that much talk about it, and unfortunately the Carolina Panthers didn't think so, and I'm just happy to that they think enough of me to take me with the 5th pick.
Isn't it one of those deals that you threw for all those touchdowns, just don't fix what's not broken?
Yeah, I guess it is a little bit. I didn't change the way I threw. There might have been some things that I eliminated that were unnecessary throughout the course of the season, that maybe that I'd gotten a little sloppy, but everything's fine, and obviously with the size I was picked, I think that's pretty evident.
All right, Lee Steinberg, his agent, standing by here. We'll get back and visit with Lee here in just a moment. But Chris, it's one of those deals where if it isn't fixed, why work on something that's just not broken?
All right, Craig, thank you. And Kerry Collins wearing the Panthers colors. Bill Polian down at Carolina has had his eye on him all fall, all spring, and Chris Mortensen. The Panthers have their man.
That's right, Chris. I remember calling the Polian residents, I think on Rose Bowl, when Penn State was playing Oregon, and his wife Eileen, of course, was ecstatic about Kerry Collins. Bill, no doubt, the Carolina Panthers, and you are too.
Well, we are. We're very happy. Mr. Richardson, Dom, Mike, Dom and Ely, all of us felt that Kerry Collins was the man that could lead us for the long haul. We felt that a quarterback was the cornerstone of the franchise. Kajana Carter's a magnificent player. Steve McNair is a magnificent player. We felt we had to have a quarterback, and Kerry Collins is our guy, and we're thrilled.
At the same time, the last expansion team that had the #1 pick, I think, Seattle Seahawks, traded the rights to Tony Dorsett. Could one day you regret trading this pick?
Well, I don't think you can ever predict what's going to happen in the future, and that's clearly a famous or infamous trade, depending on where you look at it from. But I think in the long run, we're real happy with Kerry Collins, and we think he's a guy we can build around.
And yet Kerry Collins, the criticism about him was a hitch in his delivery. What do you respond to critics that say he had a hitch in his delivery?
Well, we went over the films very carefully in slow motion. We timed the delivery. We timed it against people like Jim Kelly and others in the NFL, and it's fine. That's not a problem.
Well, the Carolina Panthers have their quarterback for the future. Let's go back to Chris Berman in New York.
All right, guys, a hitch in the delivery. I think it's a hitch in the giddy-up. Kerry Collins will be quarterbacking the Carolina Panthers one day. The St. Louis Rams have 4.5 minutes to make their selection. We'll be back.
Now.
Back in New York, we've had 5 picks, and the St. Louis Rams have 2 minutes and 18 seconds to make their first pick. This is a possible trade spot with Kevin Carter and Mike Mamula available. Let's go quickly to Mark Malone in Philadelphia. Are the Eagles one of those that are trying to work a trade, Mark?
No doubt about it, Chris. Ray Rhodes told us he'd be working the phones to try to get up all day long. The guys he likes, you mentioned Mamula, Carter, Ellis Johnson, those are players that he'd like to come away with his first round having. Now, Mike Mamula, if he could get him, would probably play outside. That would free up Bill Romanowski to come inside and play inside linebacker. Ray Rhodes is familiar, thinks he can do it there, and it might be a very interesting move if they can pull it off. Chris?
All right, Mark, thank you. So there are now about a minute and a half left, and the card is on its way up to the podium. We have to look at the color to see if it's a trade card, but see if the Rams keep it.
With the 6th choice in the first round, the St. Louis Rams select the defensive end from the University of Florida, Kevin Carter. Tampa Bay is now on the clock.
There's a pretty wide smile for a pretty big young man. Kevin Carter, defensive end from Florida, goes to the Rams, who now enter St. Louis with a Thunder up front. Sean Gilbert, a fine player, a very high draft pick a couple years ago. Robert Young, Jimmy Jones signed a year ago, the handyman from the Dallas Cowboys. This is a team in a division with the San Francisco 49ers who throw the ball. This is a team, Mel, that now can seriously rush the passer. Carter is a behemoth.
He is the 3rd best player on my board, Chris, behind Kajana Carter and Tony Boselli, and you get him at the 6th spot, and you're talking about a possible fearsome foursome being developed with the Rams. Watch Carter here, number 57, runs a 4.67 at 273 pounds, cat-like quickness, can get to the sidelines, chase down that running back. But it's a pass rusher that got him up to this point. Here he is at the Hula Bowl, moving in for the sack against Rob Johnson. They did that all game in the Hula Bowl. Here against Tennessee, you see the ability to play through the block and then chase down. Once he separates, he'll turn on that 4.67 speed and get the quarterback. Again, in the Hula Bowl, unblocked. That's an easy one. That's a gimme against Johnson, but it still showcases what makes the pass rushers in the NFL either average or great, is that ability to not only separate, but close, and that's why Kevin Carter is viewed as a possibility for that 13 to 17 sack area, Chris, in the National Football League.
Well, that number 1 looks pretty small when he holds it up right there, doesn't it? Warren Sapp now becomes one of the men of the hour. Now let's say this thus far. The way the draft has gone down, Warren Sapp, no matter what happened yesterday or no matter what did not happen, would not have gone anywhere yet.
Right.
I mean, it's possible the Rams could have picked him, but there is nothing that has made him drop at this point. Tampa Bay, now these become the slots where Tampa Bay either will go with Warren Sapp, a team might call the Buccaneers and move up and take Warren Sapp, or that he might slide a little bit. But thus far, Mel, nothing has happened the way McNair has gone to Houston and Collins to Carolina, etc., that has changed his position.
The Buccaneers, with their 2 picks in this draft, would select 2 Hall of Fame defensive stars who both later played for the Buccaneers as well as in the Super Bowl, which they won.
Like an Ellis Johnson from Florida, a Mike Mamula from Boston College, 2 high-character individuals, very consistent football players. If they're close with Sapp, all of a sudden that's enough to push him back a little bit and force Tampa Bay to either go with an Ellis Johnson or a Mike Mamula over a Warren Sapp, especially for a Buccaneer team with Sam Weiss. It's really under the gun to do a good job.
All right, well, now the Buccaneers are on the clock. Let's head to Florida. We're just up the pike from Tampa Bay. In Jacksonville is Andrea Kramer. Andrea, what's brewing right now?
Well, going back to the Rams for a second, Chris, yes, they liked Galloway, they liked his speed. However, they felt that there was simply more of a need on the defensive side of the ball. The 2 highest-rated defensive players they had, Kevin Carter and Warren Sapp, who you've been talking about all morning, I don't know if we can say that they didn't take Sapp because of the drug allegations. Steve Ortmeyer told me this morning that they had done their own background checks on him, and that wasn't going to be a factor. However, if they had taken Sapp, they would have moved Sean Gilbert to defensive end. This way, they keep him at tackle. They put Kevin Carter out at defensive end. They also just signed free agent Keith McCants, which they're going to put at defensive end. So they got, as far as they're concerned, the Rams, their top-rated player on the board, on the defensive board, and that is Kevin Carter. And, by the way, watching it in the Rams in the draft room is the new partial owner, Stan Kroenke. You got to be sure that he's happy with Kevin Carter. Chris?
All right, Andrea, thank you. Kevin Carter to the Rams, the first defensive player chosen here. The last time the Rams took a first-round player from Florida, 1971. He played the same position. His name was Jack Youngblood. He was pretty good last time I checked. Warren Sapp, does he go in the next selection or three? We'll be back in New York in a moment. 5 of them offense, and Kevin Carter, the first defensive player who has gone to the St. Louis Rams. Tampa Bay, Seattle are the next one on the clock, with the Jets and Cleveland following up. So those are the next 4 teams that are up. Let's go to Craig James right now. Craig?
Well, Chris, Warren Sapp, a hot topic. I just visited with his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, who said the Rams had told him they would take Warren Sapp. You have to wonder if these allegations hurt there. He also said don't be surprised to see a team like the Raiders maybe make a move to come up. That'd be a great choice by the Raiders, and we all know Al Davis. He's the kind of guy that has the guts to go ahead and make a decision to take Warren Sapp.
Well, there may be some calls that Tampa Bay is entertaining, Craig, as you mentioned, from teams who would not normally be calling in this slot. As the Buccaneers continue on the clock with 8:40 to go, let's check in with Chris Mortensen down at Panther headquarters in South Carolina. Mort?
Well, Chris, as we take a look at Warren Sapp and just Dennis Erickson mentioning rumors and Drew Rosenhaus, false reports, you have to remember these reports are coming from NFL Security, which is the investigative branch of the league, as they delivered the reports to all the teams who inquired about Sapp. And they did this late yesterday, and that was the one thing that bothered some of the teams, is that this information came so late, and why. But it's NFL Security that provided this information to the teams. It's not a media rumor, so to speak, Chris.
All right, Mort. Tampa Bay. This is a team that since 1982 has not made the playoffs. This is a team that, although they had a nice run to finish the end of last year, has not lost less than 10 games since the 1983 season. Defense, a reason why.
Absolutely. We had 20 sacks last year. No player had more than 4, 28th ranked. Interceptions, 28th. Yards rushing allowed, 27th. Yards rushing a game, 26th. Takeaways, 26th. Only 21 in the entire year. I definitely think that Sapp would not be a bad player to take here. Everybody wonders, are these allegations true? Are they not? Rusty Tillman is now the defensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. He will turn around the defense. They will be a better football team. I think if anything else regarding Warren Sapp comes out of this, he's got to be scared a little bit to find out the scrutiny that a National Football player goes under. If he did do anything before, he's going to have to be really careful to do it in the future if he decides to do it. If not, then he won't have anything to worry about. I personally think that Sapp would be a very good choice for Tampa Bay right here. It wouldn't hurt him.
And they probably didn't expect him to maybe get down to this slot. They're taking all the time. Let's go down to Gary Danielson and see if he can kind of listen in behind closed doors at Tampa Bay. Gary?
This is really a team that's going to use all their time with the clock. They're going to entertain moves down now. They know there's a lot of depth at defensive line. They took care of their offense with Alvin Harper, Trent Dilfer, Eric Rett, but as we looked earlier in the war room, we saw the guys in the war room, Rich McKay, Sam Weish, and defensive line coach Tom Pratt. They're getting together to discuss the depth at defensive line. I think Warren Sapp would be a great pick for them also, but it would not surprise me if they move down with this pick. Rich McKay told me yesterday, though, that he's not going to trade down and get nothing. He would want at least a high number 2 to move down in this position. Chris?
All right, Gary, one thing we should all remember when we're deciding and where Warren Sapp goes, etc., decisions that you make as a young man or a young woman at 21 or 22 years of age aren't necessarily the ones you make at 25 or at 28 or at 31. That's something that football teams have to think about right now. The Lombardi Award winner, Warren Sapp, we know what kind of football player he is. Does he go right here? right, back in New York, under 4 minutes to go for the first-round selection, the 7th overall of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 5 offense, 1 defense. The Buccaneers have reached a tentative agreement on a trade that would send their veteran quarterback, Craig Erickson, to the Indianapolis Colts. The terms of the deal not yet come out because it's contingent on Erickson coming to a contract agreement with the Colts, which, to our knowledge, at this point is being worked on, but has not yet happened. Dilfer would be the second year, Mel and Joe, second-year quarterback for Tampa Bay. Only played a little bit behind Erickson last year. Is it time for him, or are the Bucs making a move too soon if they do this?
I think it's a great move if this trade is consummated, Chris. You forget the stats on Dilfer. He was a young kid, should have been back at Fresno State, had that extra year. He came out early, needed to be developed, but he's got great talent. Sam Weiss really thinks highly of Trent Dilfer. The key to this trade is that Craig Erickson becomes a free agent, unrestricted free agent, if he would sign that 1-year deal and remain at Tampa. Then next year, Tampa Bay, who figures to be right around that 500 mark, would lose Craig Erickson with no compensation. Here, they dish him off to the Colts, who desperately need a quarterback. And I'm not going to get into that Bill Tobin nonsense here, but it's ironic that these two teams are going to be talking quarterbacks here. But as far as Trent Dilfer
The Hall of Fame players that were in the
man.
1995 NFL Draft included Tony Boselli, Warren Sapp, Ty Law, Derrick Brooks, Curtis Martin, and Terrell Davis. This draft had many superstar players, he was an iconic
when they ask
draft
him a
for the
question about the
ages.
game plan or
The
plays or
draft
whatever.
this
He's
was-
ready to roll, and it's a key year for Trent Dilfer.
All right, well, with about 2 minutes, a little and change left on the clock, we have word that there may be a trade in this spot, which doesn't surprise us, because the defensive line, the pass rusher, the home run hitter type, this is what all teams covet, and this is a spot where Warren Sapp, Mike Mamula, or some other names a little bit farther down the line, Ellis Johnson, they come into play. And teams like a Philadelphia, teams like a Minnesota, teams that think that they need some help there, know that the players are there that they want at number 7. So as we wait for the card, now we don't know if the card has gone up yet because conveniently the podium is 180 degrees behind my head, and I'm not going to show a national audience the back and the top of my head. Okay? That's just the way it works. and everybody here backs me up.
They're clamoring for it. They want to see it.
Later on in the 4th round. Oh, I'm 40 in a couple weeks. Give me a break, you know? About 2 minutes left on the clock for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, followed by Seattle, followed by the Jets. Let's go to the commissioner now and see what happens.
We've had a trade between Tampa Bay and Philadelphia. Tampa Bay has traded to Philadelphia this pick, first choice in the 7th round, as well as Tampa Bay's 3rd round pick, which is the 72nd, 7-2 overall. In return, Tampa Bay gets Philadelphia's choice in the 1st round, which is number 12, Philadelphia's choice in the 2nd round, which is number 43, and Philadelphia's additional choice in the 2nd round, which is number 63. So Philadelphia is now on the clock. And Philadelphia has now made a selection with the 7th pick just acquired from Tampa Bay. The Eagles select defensive end from Boston College, Mike Mamula.
All right, the Eagles have pulled the trigger.
Mike Mamula from Boston College.
Mike Mamula, the pick from Boston College. The Eagles have pulled the trigger. They had 3 second-round picks going into this draft. To make a move like that, they just spent 2 of them. Let's go down to Mark Malone and find out the Eagles didn't wait long on getting their man Mamula. Mark?
Thanks, Chris. No, they certainly didn't. Ray Rhodes, you said today that you would work the phones as much as you possibly could to get a defensive lineman. Mike Mamula was there, along with some other guys you liked. Why Mamula?
Well, first of all, I went to the draft. I had a chance to work Mamula out, and I was very impressed. And I felt in order for the Philadelphia Eagles to get over the hump here, we need to bring in a big-time pass rush, and Mamula fits that bill.
You now might have to move Romanowski inside. We had talked about that a little bit this morning. Is that something that will definitely happen?
That's a possibility. We're going to look at a whole lot of options and everything, but we're very excited about getting Mamula.
He's an impact player. Can he play linebacker? And everybody said he's kind of a tweener. Where will he play for you?
Well, right now he's going to be a rush end for us, but he can also play linebacker. He has great movement, and I think he's a great football player.
Now, there were a lot of players still available. Ellis Johnson was still out there. Warren Sapp. how much of the information that trickled down today made it difficult to take Sapp, or did Mike Mamula make that choice easy for you?
Well, first of all, Mamula is one of the guys we were targeted to go after in the draft. He was our number one choice of guys to go after, and we were able to get the things accomplished.
You told me you had a price that you wanted to pay to try to move up. Did you pay what you wanted, or did you end up paying a little bit more than you'd like to?
Well, you know, that's to be debated. You know, I mean, first of all, when you want a player, you go after him. And this is the player we wanted, and we went after him.
All right, Coach, thank you very much. The first pick with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm sure he'll be a great one. Right now, let's send it down to Gary Danielson.
Rich McKay said going into this draft he did not want to fall in love with any one player, and really that's what's happened. They were, I think, surprised that Warren Sapp was there, but they were hoping that Kevin Carter was there. St. Louis took Kevin Carter right in front.